What is up? Back at Dave to Confused. This week has been insane, so that's why there wasn't really a video in like 7 days, because this week has absolutely been, I can't even describe how crazy it's been. I wasn't at my house. I was actually staying at my mom's and dad's place because I was out of my house. There was all this like renovations and stuff going on, and we had plumbing issues, and they were using chemicals in the plumbing. And my son has breathing issues, I have breathing issues, and it was just like not a good scene. So we were kind of like, hey, let's go stay somewhere else while this is happening, and we'll come back and resume life as it was. And that's what we did. But thank you for being very patient with me. Onto the video. Horror movies and comedy movies go together like spaghetti and more spaghetti. Actually, they go together amazingly. Horror can be super funny, especially to those who have a little bit of a darker sense of humor. Now, there are so many good horror comedy movies. To make a list of all the greatest ones, I don't think either of us have the time. We don't have enough time to do that. But I can let you in on a few of my favorites, and a special guest of mine, my cousin Jessie V, has also given me a little bit of a video that states her favorite horror comedy movies. The first one I'm going to talk about is Army of Darkness. So this is Evil Dead 3 starring Bruce Campbell. Army of Darkness is hilarious, and the overacting from Bruce Campbell just makes it all that much better. The first Evil Dead movie from 1981 by Sam Raimi was a cult classic. But it came off with a little bit of humor opposed to being this flat-out horror movie. The quick editing and the quick cut work of the horror scenes and the jump scares and the makeup and the voices of the demons and ghosts and everything that are within this cabin that they're in came off kind of funny. That wasn't the original intention of the movie, but fans loved it nonetheless, and essentially spawned 2 sequels and a remake. Now, the remake is nothing like the originals. It's a blood fest, it's a gore fest, it's a horror movie, like how they wanted to make. So don't go into the Evil Dead remake thinking it's a comedy, because it is not. It's not. But Army of Darkness number 3 of the Evil Dead trilogy is super funny. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but if you love overacting and you love bad B movies and you love Bruce Campbell, this is essentially the movie for you. The Evil Dead series launched Bruce Campbell's career as an overall horror movie icon / actor. And the Evil Dead franchise became so popular it even donned a show on TV starring Bruce Campbell, which is another hilarious horror movie comedy show. So if you like quirky, if you like a little weird, if you like older movies, this is one of the best, and you should definitely check it out. That's why Army of Darkness is pretty well much number 1 in my horror movie comedy list. Now, let's just kick it and drive, and let's go check out what Jessie V has to say.
Hey guys, it's Jessie V, and my cousin Dave asked me to tell you guys what my favorite horror movie comedies are. Now, I actually don't watch a ton of comedy horrors. I prefer them to be like super serious and super scary, but I have seen a lot that are really good and I would recommend to a lot of people. The first one I have to say is The Cabin in the Woods. Ty actually introduced me to this movie not too long ago, and I found it to be so entertaining and so funny. And like, it had the gore and the scary parts, but it also just had like those moments where you can just laugh. So that's probably my number 1 that I would recommend to people. The next one is Happy Death Day, and I feel like this one is more of a thriller comedy than a horror, but it actually does say horror on IMDb. This one is definitely a slasher, and not a lot of people have seen it, I find. But Ty and I also watched this one together. We were laughing the entire time, but it also had the appropriate amount of like scares in it, so you were still having like both of those aspects. I also watched the movie Ready or Not recently. Actually, Ty and I watched this one together on our honeymoon. believe it or not. We like to watch horror movies on our honeymoon. But when I first saw this, I didn't think it would be like a horror movie too much, but once you get into it, it definitely is. It's about this woman who gets married to this man and doesn't know how crazy his family actually is. So the night that they get married, they decide to play hide and seek, but this game turns into so much more. And it was scary because I was just married and I was watching it and I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness Ty's family's not like this. But just like the other ones, the perfect amount of laughs and the perfect amount of scares. So those are all of the movies that I would encourage you guys to watch if you like comedy and horror mixed together. And yeah, I can't wait to see what Dave's picks are. Thanks guys, bye!
The next one on my list is Shaun of the Dead. Obviously a total pun off of Dawn of the Dead, but it actually holds up to being one of the best zombie movies around. Co-written and starring Simon Pegg and his good buddy Nick Frost, this zombie cult classic is incredible and hilarious. Have you ever wondered what you and your best friend would be like during the zombie apocalypse? This is a really good example. Essentially, two best friends that are in kind of a rut in life find themselves as anti-heroes in the middle of the zombie apocalypse. And all hell ensues, and it's hilarious. Everything from throwing vinyls and records at a zombie's face to basically breaking into a bar or pub and getting drunk during the apocalypse. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are at their absolute max hilarious in this movie. And it's a total cult classic that has been around for a while and still continues to draw in audiences. Now the two have gone on to make several movies together, but I think Shaun of the Dead is probably the best one they've ever made. And the ending is ironically really heartwarming. Like, it's one of those endings where you just feel warm in your heart and everything is just better after this movie. And you really want the zombie apocalypse to happen. I mean, you shouldn't want that. I mean, it shouldn't be something that you're aiming for, but let's face it, we're in a pandemic right now, so I wouldn't, not expect it at this point. Just being realistic here. I've seen way too many of these movies. I'm just being realistic. So my last horror comedy is one of my absolute favorite movies in general, and it's called Young Frankenstein. This movie was made in 1974. Yes, it is black and white, but don't let that put you off because this movie's hilarious. Starring the amazing Gene Wilder and Peter Boyle. Gene Wilder takes on the mantle of Dr. Frankenstein and is, cursed with the knowledge of how to bring things back from the dead. And of course, Peter Boyle is the Frankenstein, and he's one of the best ever. He's up there with Boris Karloff just because he's so funny. Boris Karloff being the first Frankenstein, like the black and white Frankenstein, the first one, that's Boris Karloff. Another legend, you should look him up. But what made this movie so funny is how they constantly break the third wall and they look into the camera and talk to the audience like, oh my gosh, can you believe this guy? What is happening here? And they end it with an awesome musical number. So, just saying, Frankenstein in a musical number on stage with Gene Wilder, yeah, that's a milkshake I'd like to drink. That's a really weird metaphor. I don't think I'm going to use that again. But honestly, all the one-liners and puns and just absolute craziness of this movie, it's a non-stop classic. So if you see it in one of those $5 bins at a retail store or something, you should definitely pick up Young Frankenstein. Alright, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Jessie V for putting her 2 cents in and the best horror comedy movies. And a quick shout out to my other cousin, Mandy V, for hitting 100,000 subs. That's insane! Mandy V, congratulations, 100,000 subs. You earned it. Everybody loves it. Congratulations. Well, what's your favorite horror comedy movie? I want to know. You should probably put it in the comments below. And you should go check out Mandy and Jess's channels if you haven't already. But I'm sure you probably have. Well, this is Dave from Dave the Confused. I'm Dave, still confused, and at least our dogs aren't werewolves. Peace!